so Google obviously makes all their money on the search engine, but the guys who started Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, came out of the AI group at Stanford, and so they got trained up in all this AI stuff when it wasn't even working, right? They got trained up.
Pre-Google?
They were PhD students at Stanford studying AI before they built Google. And so their kind of orientation in the world is basically AI. And they basically always viewed Google as like a simple form of AI. And so, but they always aspired, like if you read their interviews, they always said Google shouldn't have the 10 blue links, it should just give you the answer. They always, and so they started doing AI research early on at that company when it first got started, and they did it for many years. Yeah, so they basically launched an internal research group called Google Brain. They launched that, I don't know, 15 years ago or something, and the goal basically was to develop AI. And they actually developed the actual breakthrough, the specific version of the neural network that makes all these systems work now. It's called the transformer. And that was actually invented by two guys I know, wonderful guys, in 2017. And so that was like the key theoretical breakthrough that like finally made all this stuff work. But they were
was it owned by Google?
Yeah. Well, so this was considered research, not development, and so the way that it was like an internal scientific unit at a company, and so they actually published it as a paper.
I see.
And there's a long history of this, where this actually a lot of the great breakthroughs over time have actually come out of like industrial research labs like this, and then the company that develops it publishes it, and then they don't realize until later that they should have kept it secret. But also the reason that they were able to hire all these great researchers out of all these universities is they promised them that they could publish their work. Right, and so it was sort of part of the deal with these guys was that they would get to publish. So they had this key breakthrough in 2017. So, but it sort of became clear in the 2010s that like there was finally progress being made, and that some of these systems were going to start to work. And Elon had some conversation with Larry Page, who was running Google at the time, and Larry said to Elon, this AI thing's really going to work, and we're going to end up with AIs that are like, much, smarter and more powerful than people. And Elon said, well, aren't you worried that they're going to like have their own goals and they're going to take over and they're not going to want us around anymore? And Larry's response was, you're being speciesist. You're being racist, but towards your species. And if they're a better form of life, then they should take over and we should all die and humanity should go away. Now, knowing Larry, I think there's at least a 50% chance he was joking. But Elon couldn't tell and took him seriously. And so Elon had a visceral reaction and was like, oh my God, like the big risk here is not just developing AI. The big risk here is Google develops AI and Larry Page is in control of it. And he does horrible, horrible things. And so he's like, so he called all these people who he knew. And he said, we need to start the competitive effort to that today. And we need to call it, it needs to be, as opposed to Google's closed AI, it needs to be OpenAI. And
this was to protect the world.
To protect the world. In Elon's view, it's to protect the world. So what Elon says is we need to go hire all the best researchers we can.
It seems to be that's what he's always done. Yeah. It's like Tesla was, cars need to be electric. SpaceX was, if anything happens to the Earth, we could live on Mars. He's always motivated by saving the planet.
Yeah, that's right. And saving
humanity.
And humanity, right, exactly. And saving humanity. Yeah, no, I think that's true. Look, I mean, Tesla has been a climate story the whole time and still is.
For sure, from the beginning it was.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, Tesla, as you know, like Tesla isn't just cars, they're also batteries, right?
Yeah.
They also do.
And he also, I remember from the beginning of the first Tesla announcement was, and I'm hoping every car company steals our technology.
That's right. That's right. No patents. He open sources everything.
Exactly. So it's for everyone. Yeah. It was always for everyone.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's right. So that's what he did here. And then what he did basically was he said, look, if you're an AI researcher and you're interested in money, then you can go to work at Google and they can pay you a lot of money. But if you care about the mission of having it be open, then come and work with me. And he called it OpenAI, and he made it a nonprofit, not a for-profit. And he said, and then he said basically, everything we do at OpenAI is going to be open sourced in the same way, right? So he said basically, if you come here, your work is all going to get published, everything's going to be open. He even said early on, he said the mission of OpenAI is to make sure that AI happens and is safe and is universally available to all of humanity. And he said it would actually be fine if somebody else does that and makes it available, in which case OpenAI will just shut down and our mission will be complete. So it was set up as a nonprofit, it was registered as a nonprofit. He donated what's reported to be something like $50 million to get it off the ground. And then a group of people, including Elon and Sam Altman and others, then brought in a lot of these people, these names now, Greg Brockman and Ilya Sutskever and a bunch of these like really smart guys. And they formed this thing and they got underway. And then basically, it's a long story, long detailed story. But in the beginning, this was like 2014 or 2015. They didn't have the transformer yet, so they didn't know how to make like ChatGPT work. They were primarily working on trying to have AIs that can play video games in those days as sort of a proxy for being able to make decisions and so forth. But it like didn't go that well, and so it was sort of start and stop, and some things worked and some things didn't, and so it was kind of a little bit kind of iffy along the way as to whether it would work. And then basically at some point stuff really started to work. Like the things all started to actually perform really well. And then in particular, there was this breakthrough. There was the large language model breakthrough. And the way I've heard the story is there was one guy there, whose name is Alec Radford, who had this idea for these language models. And the rest of the organization thought he was nuts and didn't want him to do it. And he's like, no, I think we might actually be able to make this thing work. And this transformer thing came out. And then they started to then they did GPT-1, which was the first version of the text LLM. And then they were like, and then they did GPT-2, and they were like, okay, this is really going to be a thing. And then basically what happened at like around that time is this guy, Sam Altman, basically came. He had been sort of an original founder, but he kind of disengaged, and then he kind of came back in. And sort of he took control of it. There's controversy over this, but Elon became less involved. Sam took control of it. And then Sam did this very important thing, which is he created a for-profit subsidiary under the nonprofit.
And why did he do that?
So what he said, and I'm sure this is true, what he said was, to make these large language models work, we need a lot of computer capacity, and we need a lot of data, and we're going to need billions of dollars. Basically, he said, I know how to raise $100 million for nonprofits. I don't know how to raise $10 billion for nonprofits. It's just hard to do that. Not many of those running around. So he said, we're going to create a for-profit subsidiary so that we can basically sell shares in that for-profit subsidiary, right, and generate revenue and generate profits. And then that's what will let us raise the money, because if we can't raise the money, we won't be able to keep going on this research. Which means, by the way, ultimately it will all be done by an actual for-profit company, right, like Google or Microsoft, and then OpenAI won't win. And so he turned what had been a pure nonprofit into a nonprofit that owns a for-profit. The employees of the nonprofit became employees of the for-profit. Salaries went up a lot. The amount of money that they raised went up a lot. Their ability to invest went up a lot.
What was Elon's participation for the original $50 million?
So Elon has said publicly that he got nothing for it. What he says is it was a philanthropic donation. You're under tax laws. You can't just turn a for-profit. You can't just turn a nonprofit into a for-profit,
right? Because
it's a violation of tax laws. And so I think legally they probably couldn't give him anything. But anyway, he says he got nothing for it.
It's interesting.
And he has said in public, basically, he's like, wow, that seems like a neat trick. Why doesn't everybody do it?
Yeah.
And so he has suggested over the years that like there was something wrong with how they did this, and who knows? We'll see. But Sam made that change, and by the way, that worked, right? They were able to all of a sudden start paying competitive salaries to Google for engineers. They were able to buy all the computer power they needed. They were able to buy. They have lots of money going into making training data. And so like that part of it worked, and that's what resulted in ChatGPT. That's why ChatGPT exists, and that's why DALL-E exists. He did another thing along the way, which was he turned it basically into closed AI. So he turned it into a for-profit, and he canceled the part where it publishes everything. And basically, as of 4 years ago or 5 years ago or so, they stopped publishing their research. And he did that under the theory that it's too dangerous to distribute. It's too powerful, too dangerous, and other people can't have it. But there's some irony in that, which is the whole reason OpenAI exists, is because that was what Elon and Sam were afraid that Google was going to do, right? So